to The Deep Dive. Today, we're taking a shortcut into a topic that might just challenge what you thought you knew about a really major figure in Hindu mythology.
Yeah.
We're talking about Lord Hanuman, celebrated for incredible strength, his devotion to Lord Rama, and maybe most famously, his lifelong vow of celibacy, brahmacharya. For most people, that's just fundamental, a core truth about him. And here's where it gets interesting, there's this question that pops up. If Hanuman was the ultimate celibate, why are there these stories, folk tales, even some texts that hint he might have been married or maybe even had a son? It's a really fascinating puzzle. Kind of opens up a whole new angle. So our mission today is to unpack this. We've got a stack of sources, everything from the big holy texts everyone accepts to more regional folk tales. We're going to pull out the key bits of info for you. We'll explore these, conflicting stories, try to understand where they came from and see what they tell us about the richness of Indian mythology and how it's interpreted. We'll hit some surprising facts, look at different viewpoints, and hopefully give you a few aha
moments without, burying you in details. So let's dive in. For centuries, the main belief seems pretty clear, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It really has been. And what's so fascinating, I think, is just how deeply ingrained that belief is. Hanuman as the eternal brahmachari. It's central for so many people, and yet, when you actually start looking closer, you find all these really vibrant traditions, not just in India, but sometimes elsewhere too, that offer, maybe not a total contradiction, but certainly a different perspective, or at least a nuance to that core idea.
That's a great point. So, okay, let's start there. Let's establish that core foundation first.
Sure.
The widely held Hindu belief, backed up by a lot of the most respected texts, is definitely that Lord Hanuman was a dedicated follower of brahmacharya. Complete control over mind, body, senses.
Precisely. And it's not just a vague idea, it's explicitly laid out in key holy texts. If you look at the Valmiki Ramayana, the Shiv Purana, Vishnu Purana, Sri Ramcharitamana, several really foundational texts, they consistently say Hanuman took a lifelong vow of celibacy, he abstained from marriage, any sexual relations, they're pretty clear, no marriage, no kids.
Right, so for the vast majority of Hindus, if you ask, was Hanuman married? The answer you'll get is a firm no, and it's based squarely on these major texts.
Okay. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Because like you said, while that's the main view, the foundational one, there are these other stories, quite a few popular ones, folktales mostly, that, they paint a different picture entirely. They make you kind of lean in and look closer. Let's start with one involving Suvarchala Devi. She's said to be the daughter of the sun god.
Yes, that's a key one. And interestingly, there's even a subtle hint. Some interpretations say, in a verse of the Hanuman Chalisa that might refer to Hanuman as Suvarchala's consort. The story goes that Hanuman was this incredibly bright student of Surya Dev, the sun god. Surya Dev was apparently really impressed, wanted to teach Hanuman everything, all the Vedas, and his 9 special powers, the Siddhis.
But there was a catch, wasn't there? A problem with the curriculum, so to speak. Exactly. Surya Dev realized he could only teach 6 of the 9 cities. The other 3, they required the student to be a grihast, someone who's, entered married life, leads a family. And Hanuman, being an Arjuna brahmachari celibate from birth, he just wasn't eligible for those last 3 powers.
Okay, so a divine roadblock. How did they solve that?
Well, this is where the Trimurti Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva step in. They apparently saw how important Hanuman's complete education was for his future role. So they instructed Surya Dev to use his divine power to create a woman. And poof. From the sun's rays, Suvarchala Devi appears. She's described as a beautiful maiden, a kanya, but crucially also an Arjuna brahmachariani, a celibate woman herself.
So celibate meets celibate.
Precisely. Her whole purpose was to marry Hanuman, technically making him a grahas so he could learn the final siddhis, but crucially, without either of them breaking their vows of brahmacharya. The story explicitly says they married, and both continued to maintain their celibacy even after marriage.
Wow. So it's like a loophole marriage for educational purposes, but with a bigger cosmic plan involved too, right? Something about future roles.
Yes, exactly. The Trimurti needed Hanuman fully trained because, according to this narrative, he was destined to be the next Brahma. And Suvarchala would take the place of Vani, Brahma's consort. It gives the whole thing this grander cosmic significance.
Okay, that's quite a story.
Yeah.
But you mentioned contradictions earlier.
Ah, yes. And this is where it gets really complex. If you look at the Markandeya Purana, it presents a totally different picture regarding Suvarchala. In that text, she is listed as one of Surya's wives, not his daughter created for Hanuman.
One of his wives. Wait, so
And even more surprising, in that specific Purana, Hanuman is actually named as their son, along with several others.
Whoa, son of Surya and Suvarchala. That completely flips the script.
It really does. And what this shows us, I think, is how these ancient stories weren't static texts like we might think today. They were living traditions. They evolved. They were interpreted differently in different regions, reflecting local beliefs, and maybe even addressing different spiritual needs. It really highlights that Hindu mythology isn't this single, rigid thing. It's more like a vibrant tapestry woven from many, many threads.
That is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's mind-bending. But despite these textual clashes, the story of Hanuman and Suvarchala clearly still holds meaning for people.
Absolutely. You see that today at the Sri Suvarchala Sahita Hanuman Temple down in Andhra Pradesh. Apparently, couples who are having marital problems go there specifically to pray for help, drawing on that narrative of a divinely ordained harmonious union, even if it was celibate. It shows how these stories, regardless of academic debates about origins, continue to have real cultural and spiritual power.
Okay, fascinating. Let's switch gears completely now. Different region, different text. Tell us about Suvarnamacha, Ravana's daughter. This comes from Thailand.
Yes, this story is found in the Thai version of the Ramayana, the Ramayan. Suvarnamacha is depicted as a mermaid princess, and yes, Ravana's daughter. So Ravana, trying to stop Rama's army, orders her to sabotage the bridge, the Ramasetu, that the Vanara army was building across the ocean. But, importantly, he only tells her part of the story. That his kingdom's under attack, basically, not why.
Okay, so she's acting on incomplete information,
Yeah.
and Hanuman gets involved.
He does. Hanuman, ever the sharp one, figures out her plan. He confronts her, but instead of just fighting, he explains the whole situation, Ravana's actions, Rama's righteous cause. He basically gives her the other side of the story. And he asks her, quite gently, not to interfere with this crucial bridge building.
How does she react to that?
Well, the story says she was genuinely struck by Hanuman's honesty, his humility. She believes him, accepts his request, and then, kind of surprisingly, confesses she's fallen in love with him.
Ah, okay, but Hanuman is...
Hanuman is Hanuman. He very clearly restates his lifelong vow of brahmacharya. He explains he can never love her back in that way, never marry her, total commitment to celibacy.
But the story doesn't end there, does it? There's a son involved.
Right. Here's the unique twist in this version. Even though he affirms his celibacy, Suvarnamacha apparently requests a child. And Hanuman, using his divine powers, blesses her with a son. So a son is born, but through divine blessing, not physical union.
Interesting. So again, even with a love interest and a son, the core celibacy remains intact, just expressed differently. What's the key takeaway here?
I think it's another powerful illustration of Hanuman's unwavering commitment to his vow, even when faced directly with affection. But it also shows this capacity for, let's say, divine compassion, acting beyond purely conventional rules to grant a boon. It's also important for listeners to know this Thai version, the Ramayan, while important in Southeast Asia, it's generally not well known or accepted as, let's say, authentic scripture among most Hindus in India itself. It's a distinct regional tradition.
Makes sense. Okay, let's bring it back to India now, but to another folktale. This one involves Anang Kusum, who's supposed to be Ravana's niece.
Yeah, this is described as a popular folktale in some parts of India. And the setup is interesting. It supposedly happens before the whole Sita abduction saga. The tale describes Hanuman fighting Ravana earlier on behalf of Varnudeva, the sea god. Hanuman actually defeats and captures Ravana and his sons. Ravana then apparently comes seeking peace.
And during this peace negotiation,
Ravana, impressed by Hanuman's power, finds out he's actually an incarnation of Lord Shiva. And then Ravana offers his niece, Anang Kusum, in marriage to Hanuman. She's identified as the daughter of Kardoshan and Ravana's sister, Chandranakar.
Okay, another marriage proposal. Is there a divine angle here too?
There is. This story adds a layer where Anang Kusum herself was a huge devotee of Lord Shiva and really wanted to marry him. Shiva, pleased with her devotion, had apparently blessed her, saying he would marry her, but in his reincarnated form.
So since Hanuman is considered an incarnation of Shiva or Rudra...
Exactly. The folktale presents it as Hanuman being sort of divinely obligated to fulfill Shiva's promise by marrying her.
But I'm guessing there's a condition.
You guessed it, the same condition. Hanuman agrees, but only if he can maintain his vow of celibacy even within the marriage.
It's becoming a theme. Celibacy is non-negotiable.
Absolutely. And what's fascinating here, again, is seeing how these local tales weave together existing beliefs. Hanuman as Shiva's avatar, his celibacy with new characters and divine obligations to create these unique narratives. But And this is a crucial, but for clarity, we have to state that neither the main Valmiki Ramayana nor other widely accepted epics even mention a character named Anankusum, Ravana's niece.
Right, so she doesn't appear in the foundational text at all.
No. And in fact, the Valmiki Ramayana clearly states the first time Ravana meets Hanuman is much later, when Hanuman is captured in Lanka after destroying the Ashokvatika. That's when Hanuman formally introduces himself as Rama's messenger. The timeline just doesn't match this folktale.
Okay, good clarification. Now there's another story, extremely similar, involving Satyavati, daughter of Varun.
Yes, very closely related, often seems like a variant of the Anankusum one. It starts the same way Hanuman wins a battle for Varundeva. Varundeva is impressed and wants Hanuman to marry his daughter, Satyavati. But instead of approaching Hanuman directly, Varun goes to Hanuman's mother, Anjana. And Anjana, according to this tale, accepts the proposal, apparently not knowing about her son's strict vow of celibacy.
Uh-oh. So Hanuman is put in a difficult position.
Exactly. He feels bound to honor his mother's word, so he agrees to marry Satyavati.
Let me guess. With a condition.
With the exact same condition. He marries her, but remains a brahmachari throughout his life.
So yet another example. Duty, obligation, marriage proposal.
Yeah.
But always, always circling back to that core commitment to celibacy. It's like the constant thread. All right, finally, let's talk about the son, Makardwaj. This story comes from the Advaita Ramayana.
That's right. The Adbhuta Ramayana, which is considered one of the, let's say, less mainstream or later versions of the Ramayana. And this story of Makardwaj's birth is really unique. It takes place after Hanuman sets Lanka on fire with his tail. He flies back over the ocean and, feeling hot, takes a dip to cool off. As he's in the water, a single drop of his sweat falls and lands right into the mouth of a giant fish or crocodile, depending on the telling.
A drop of sweat. And that leads to...
Miraculously, yes. That drop of sweat, imbued with his divine energy, impregnates the creature. And later, this fish crocodile gives birth to Makardwaj, Hanuman's son, born without any physical union.
Wow. That's definitely extraordinary conception. What happens to Makardwaj?
He grows up to be quite powerful himself and eventually becomes the gatekeeper of Pathala Loka, the netherworld. In this version, Pathala Loka is ruled by Ahiravan, who's described as Ravana's cousin or brother.
Ahiravan. Is he in the main Ramayana?
No. And that's another important point, similar to Anankusum. The character Ahiravan, central to this part of the Adbhuta Ramayana, doesn't actually appear in the original Valmiki Ramayana either.
Okay, so this Makardwaj story and the Ahiravan connection, they're specific to this particular, less common version of the epic.
Correct. And it really raises interesting questions about how mythology works, doesn't it? How a character story can just branch off in these really unexpected symbolic directions and different tellings. These versions, even if they aren't the most widely read or accepted as, the original, they still show this incredible creativity and diversity in how people explored and expanded on the legends of figures like Hanuman.
Definitely. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground, from the core belief to all these frankly surprising alternative stories. So what does this all mean for you, the listener, trying to get your head around these incredible, sometimes contradictory narratives?
Well, I think the main thing is seeing how these different stories, whether you view them as authentic scripture or as regional folklore, they all add these incredible layers to understanding such a major figure. They really showcase the sheer diversity and dynamism of religious storytelling across different times, different places, different communities within India, and even, as we saw, beyond.
And that constant thread we kept noticing, it's really striking, isn't it?
It really is. Almost every single one of these stories that involves marriage, or even the son, Makardwaj, they go out of their way to reinforce Hanuman's commitment to brahmacharya. It's either an explicit condition of the marriage, or the birth happens in this completely extraordinary, non-physical way.
Right. It's like even when telling a different story, that core attribute had to be preserved somehow. It creates this amazing tension, this paradox almost, that these storytellers chose to explore.
Yeah, it shows how fundamental that aspect of his character is, that even these alternative traditions felt the need to incorporate and uphold it.
So maybe a final thought for everyone listening to chew on.
Yeah, perhaps consider this. What does it really mean when a figure as revered as Hanuman is depicted in ways that seem at first glance so contradictory? How do these different stories, these diverse narratives, actually enrich our understanding, not just of Hanuman, but of things like devotion, duty, spiritual paths, especially when they challenge the first idea we might have had?
Yeah, how does embracing that diversity, that complexity, Maybe deepen our appreciation for the whole tradition, warts and all, or perhaps complexities and all.
Exactly. How does acknowledging these different versions maybe tell us something important about the nature of faith itself, how it lives, breathes, and adapts through storytelling? Something to think about.